Hey everyone, I'm Sandy Robinson, your host of RevOps Unboxed. And on this episode of RevOps Unboxed, it's going to be me talking to you a little bit about some of the things that I've learned over the last several months, talking to different guests that I've had on the show this season. And some of the common themes that we've discussed, some of the challenges, and something that I like to do in my organization on a continual basis. So we'll chat about that a little bit. So the first thing that I wanted to cover is this idea of alignment. In almost every episode, my guests have shared concerns about alignment with revenue operations and some of the challenges they face in their organizations, some of the things that they've seen in other organizations and jobs that they've had in revenue operations types of roles. Now, one of the things that I learned is almost every guest had a different reporting structure in their organization. Some of them, RevOps leaders, reported up to maybe a VP of sales. Some of them reported to a CRO. I even had a guest reporting to a COO and a CFO in a revenue operations role. And so these things create all different types of challenges in the organization. So when we think of revenue operations in a perfect utopian world, we're talking about supporting the full customer buying journey. So that's from hand raiser. So somebody is a prospect or not even a prospect yet, thinking about engaging with your company, all the way through when they decide to leave your company and churn, and to the referral process. So if you think about the bow tie by Winning by Design, that's the full customer life cycle. So how they buy, revenue operations would support every stage of that journey on an internal basis. So CRO structure, in theory, would span the full customer life cycle. But in practice, in reality, in different roles, in different organizations, different stages, it is literally different in every organization. I mean, I have heard things from just called revenue operations, but it's really more of a sales operations function where they're reporting up to a chief sales officer, or maybe the chief revenue officer is only supporting sales and marketing and not the customer success side of the organization. So that becomes heavily focused on top of the funnel in more of a sales ops and marketing ops type of a role. So, I mean, whatever it's called, it doesn't matter, right? But really, we want to be thinking about the customer. So I'm going to give you a real example. There is, in my organization, we have sales and marketing reporting up to the CRO. One of the areas that I work very diligently to support is the process of implementations. Implementations happens to report up outside of our CRO, but we work very closely and we try to create this experience where when a salesperson closes a deal, that customer has a very seamless experience through the process, through the systems on our end, going over to the implementations team, and then eventually the client team. And those things become more challenging as you have different organizational leaders, different processes. And what I've learned is every silo in an organization might use a different tool. They might use a different process. So we have to think about taking a step back and how does your customer experience this? And what that means for me in that situation, even though my personal leadership doesn't have, quote, span of control over that, they're my partners. So we work together very closely to make sure that our processes are connected, that we are all singing the same song, we're looking in the same places, we have smooth transitions between sales and our implementations team. Notice I didn't say handoffs. I hate the word handoff because that to me is like a trigger word. If we're handing something off, I feel like we're just throwing the baton and tossing it somewhere else, and then we don't care about it. It doesn't have anything to do with us. So I try to eliminate the word handoff. I know it's difficult because when it goes from one step to another, it's kind of something we default to. But anyway, I digress. I don't like handoff. Okay, enough about that. Anyway, so having these processes tied together and then our systems. And, we were operating in different systems. So there's some challenges there. We have to really sit and spend some time and be intentional about how are we going to do this? Because every time you go from one step to the next step, one system to the next system, one person to the next person, you can have friction. You could have delays. And what does that mean? Added days on your sales process, additional days before we go live. And if you're in any sort of business that has an implementation process, there's a point in which we can start to recognize revenue. And that's not until we're transacting, we're actually billing with the customer, right? So these are things that, as a revenue operations leader, I believe we need to drive scalable growth and ultimately impact revenue, right? That's revenue operations. So even if it doesn't roll up in my reporting organization to my boss, I'm still focused on driving revenue. And so, yes, I need to work a little bit on the bottoms up in the organization. So, this goes back to that concept of alignment that keeps coming up everywhere. And if your reporting structure isn't aligned as such to where your CRO has complete control or span of control over the full customer buying journey, it just makes it more difficult. So, as a RevOps leader, having these collaborative skills and ability to work together with different VPs, different directors, different individual contributors throughout the organization, you're cooked. You've got nothing. So, having that structure in place, alignment from the top, is really going to help revenue operations. So, as companies are starting to form CROs, or even if you're interviewing for a job, if you're a RevOps professional and you're interviewing for a job that says RevOps, ask the question, what does this cover? What types of things am I going to be doing? Who is on your team? Who will my peers be? How does this all work in your organization? Because it is all different. Best practices are out there, but I think the reality in every company is going to be a little bit different. So it's something to be mindful of, as one, as you're interviewing for jobs, but two, as you're looking at, what's wrong in your organization, where are the problems, where are things falling down? And at the end of the day, my experience shows me that the challenges fall down with people, and people are responsible for their different parts of the organization, and they may not be aligned with each other. So if you have other parts of the organization that you have to work with, other departments outside of what is your, immediate peers in your immediate structure, it is super critical to develop those relationships and really develop a common goal and a common understanding of what you're trying to achieve. So as you dive into things, I always like to say, okay, where are we having some challenges? Diagnosing, what are the problems that we're facing today? What are our biggest problems? Let's say we're not reaching our top of line goals, or we're not closing deals fast enough, and we want to improve our days to close, or our deals aren't going live fast enough, and we want to improve the time from when we sell to when a deal goes live. So understanding where your gaps are, and then really diving in and trying to figure out what problem are we trying to solve. So if it is the problem of, okay, we want to shave off days to go live, then we want to look back to, well, are the salespeople, I don't know, talking to the right stakeholders? Are we getting the implementations teams involved soon enough? Are we getting the right people internally involved on potential product development needs or staffing resources and different things like that? And where should that happen, right? Are we waiting to do all of that till after we sign the deal? Or is that part of the closing process? Do we have a timeline discussion in our closing process? So, really, there could be a number of things. Maybe it's just a delay going from one system to another because it's sitting somewhere waiting for somebody. Maybe somebody's not getting a notification. There could be a million things that are going into and driving the fact that we're not having deals go live soon enough. So you have to do your due diligence, and that involves all the people that are in the process asking these questions and doing your own discovery internally. So listen, people, we teach sales training, or we should be, right? So use your sales skills, if you have them, internally to ask these discovery questions and really stick with the pain. Like, what problem are we trying to solve? Well, if the problem is it's taking us too long for deals to go live, therefore we're not recognizing revenue soon enough, and that's revenue we're leaving on the table this year, or that's pushing into another quarter, then we need to define the problem, get all the right butts in the seats, all the right people in the room, and dig in to the process, the people involved, and the tools that you're using, the systems, the questions you're asking the customers or the prospects, the actual stakeholders on the prospect side, right? Who do you have involved? Do you have the right people involved? One of the common things that I see is we talk to the economic buyer a lot, but we don't always talk to the people that are having to work with your products that you're selling. So think about all these things. What problem you're trying to solve, who are you working with, and then how are you going to collaborate on that and align on a singular process that's going to be smoother for the customer, that's going to be well aligned with what revenue operations is, and that is to drive revenue. So anyway, as you look at your organization, understanding what the structure is critical. So that will help you to navigate. In a perfect world, again, the CRO is going to have marketing, sales, and customer success, and revenue operations would own the marketing ops, sales ops, and customer success ops function in the business. So this brings me to enablement, another key theme that my guests talked a lot about. And when I go to conferences, I go to both enablement conferences and revenue operations conferences because my experience is in both areas. And I hear a lot of like, well, I don't get the numbers from RevOps, or I don't really work with enablement. Enablement is, a different team, and that's not really my job. To me, that is insane. RevOps and enablement have to go together. If you're rolling something out, if you're rolling even something as silly as a systems change, there has to be an internal communication strategy. There's got to be an understanding of how to use the thing. What is the impact on the customer? How do all these things work together? And if you're not working together with enablement teams, RevOps and enablement, you are going to have problems making things stick. The worst thing ever a salesperson or user of your tools can experience is logging into their CRM, and all of a sudden fields disappear that they were using, or there's a new requirement and they're like, what the hell is this? Why is this here? Because you didn't enable the tool for the people to use. You didn't define what's happening. You didn't understand how they're going to engage with it. Do they need training on it or not? Do they need some sort of micro learning? It has to be a joint partnership with RevOps and enablement. I know there's a lot of controversy, where should enablement report? Should it be under RevOps? Should it be in this group? Should it be in that group? I don't give a shit. I don't care where enablement is. We're grown-ups, work together. Enablement should never be like, I can't get my information from that sales ops guy. I literally heard this last week at a conference. Somebody that I was talking to was saying, I don't know my average deal size. I don't know our win rates. And this is an enablement leader. I don't know how many days it takes to close. I don't know any of these things because my RevOps guy doesn't give it to me. And I'm like, dude, go get it from this person, right? Like, Go ask him. Go reach out. It is your job to not sit around and wait to get the information. Go get it yourself. And if he's being weird about it, then shame on him, right? Push him for giving you the information. Get a regular meeting on his calendar. Make a partnership, okay? It shouldn't be like this weird, like, I own this and I'm RevOps and I'm enablement and blah, 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 blah. Like, this shit just needs to work together. We need to work together and get over ourselves. And I know nothing's perfect, and companies have politics and they have teams, they have competing priorities, and it is draining, especially in this role. It is draining because you're kind of in the middle of like everything, right? And on top of it, you have to make salespeople happy. And so this becomes very difficult. So if you're in enablement and you're like just trying to get time with your RevOps leader, wake the hell up and give the enablement person what they need. They're your freaking friend. They're going to make your tools successful. They're going to make your initiatives successful. If you're trying to improve a forecasting process, who the hell should you be calling? Enablement, because they can help to get people to use it correctly and to engage with the tools correctly and set it up in a way that the salesperson is going to like it. So get off your high horse and work together, because these are things that help to drive revenue. Salespeople spend less than a third of their time selling, according to a study done at Dreamforce a couple of years ago. And what are they doing? They're doing stuff in all this administrative things and messed up systems and sending emails and chats and things all over the place. RevOps, it's your job to fix that. And who the hell do you think is going to help you? It's going to be enablement. So work together, okay? I do not care about where it reports to. Again, enablement happens to roll up to me, but that's just because I have some expertise there and I grew up on the sales side, right? So it doesn't matter though. Embrace enablement, work together, because without enablement, initiatives will die, things will fail, they won't stick. So if you're trying to implement a new forecasting process, they're the people who are going to really help to make it all work and to get the results that you're trying to get in revenue operations. They're also going to get you the feedback that you need from the teams, right? So if you are thinking about making changes to your administration or different process, this can help you really tap into what is really going on in the business, because they should be really in there coaching and working with the leaders and with the team on what is actually going on, what's reality. So that's my little rant on enablement and RevOps. So get over yourselves and work together. Be grown-ups. The last thing I want to cover is doing a customer journey mapping exercise. This is something that I think every RevOps leader has to own and be responsible for. Customer journey map. If you don't have one in your organization, get your shit together and start doing one, period. So you're going to start with, how does your customer buy, from hand raiser all the way to when they leave? So you think of the full bow tie, right? So if you don't know what the bow tie is, go look it up, ask ChatGPT, ask Perplexity, and find out. You'll see Winning by Design has a great overview on the bow tie and what that means. But that's where you start, is the customer's buying process, right? And then where each stakeholder comes into that buying journey, those are your internal processes. And it's not just the sales process. A lot of times we get hyper focused on the sales process, and it's important. So in my role, when I first joined our organization, that's where we focused, because that's where we needed to focus. I needed to put in a forecasting process. In order to do that, I had to align and define the stages. What are we doing at the stage? What is the entry criteria? What is the exit criteria? What is a qualified opportunity versus a created opportunity? All of these things. So I started with the sales journey. But if you look at my massive spreadsheet, there's a tab for the marketing funnel, then the sales journey, We have a different one for a new logo versus a cross sell versus an upsell. And those stages, what happens? So you're starting with what is the customer doing? What are we doing? And then each person that's involved. So if you have an SDR, there's a process that they follow, and that is going to have some sort of joint overlap when it goes to an AE. So what do those swim lanes look like? So a full RACI chart in swim lanes, all the way down to if you have customer success, operations leaders, senior sponsors, what is RevOps doing? Is there an auditing process, legal process? So within each stage, you should have a swim lane. So for stage one, whatever that looks like, you have your criteria. What does it take to create and get into stage one and get out of it? Your exit criteria. What is the goal of each stage? And then what does the AE do? What does the SDR do? What does your sales engineer do? What does the sales manager do? Maybe they have an approval step they have to do. Maybe if a certain deal size, they're on a call as an executive sponsor. I don't know, whatever it is. And then if you're doing something like MedPick, right? Or any other sales methodology or qualification process, embed that in there. Tell people what should they do at stage one. Well, if it's MedPick, we need to have an identified pain at stage one, period. So those are the things that you want to look at. And then when you get down to it, what technology should people be using? So this is a giant process map. And the beauty of doing a customer journey map at every stage, right? So when we get to renewal, there should be a tab for renewals. When are we reaching out? Who's doing what? All of these things need to be defined. And the beauty of doing this is you get to work with every person who owns this. Okay, so as a RevOps leader, I get to go over to the SDR manager. What are you doing here? What's your first call? How does this work? What's working for you? I can also identify some problems throughout this exercise. So this is such a big critical part of being a RevOps leader, is owning the customer journey map for your organization, creating it if you don't have one, doing the work to literally meet with each department, each person. Don't just stop with the sales managers either. Go to the sales people that are doing it, the sales engineers, the SDRs, understand what are they doing, what tools are they using, document what's happening today. Then you can circle back and say, hey, here's some opportunities I noticed to clean it up. Here's where I see we have some friction. Also, here's where I see we have duplication. I found that we were doing a lot of double entry in multiple systems at certain points in the sales journey. So we tried to consolidate that and automate some of it. So there's opportunities that will come out of this. Or maybe somebody's getting notified too late, so now you have an opportunity to change a process and bring it into an earlier stage. I don't know, but you don't know what you don't know until you do the freaking exercise. So you want to map out your customer journey and spend time on how the customer buys as well. Okay, so it may be a separate session with each individual, or you may actually talk to customers that have purchased from you and ask them, well, what did they do when they were experiencing our marketing folks, our SDRs, our sales, our customer success reps? What were they thinking? What were they evaluating on their end? What would have helped them better? And maybe comes out of it, they needed, I don't know, some sort of one sheet overview to get an approval done easier in their organization. So you have to map that out as well by stakeholders, and it becomes a big document for sure. But it's important to really make sure that you're doing that work. And it's not a set it and forget it. You can't just do the customer journey exercise once, do a 1 hour training session and say, hey, everybody knows the customer journey and everybody could go do it. That's not how it works, right? You take that and then you figure out, okay, where do I need to focus? What do all these tools look like? What steps do I now need to align in the CRM? So to go back to the example of what I was working on is getting the sales journey dialed in, and then it had to be completely reconfigured in HubSpot. Each stage and the exit criteria became required fields in HubSpot. And those are things that a step that you need to take to make sure that your process is aligned with your systems, because people are in their systems. Remember, they're only spending a third of their time selling, right? So they're all up in their computers all day trying to figure stuff out on meetings, in chat, trying to figure out what the hell to enter in the CRM. So align it properly to your process. Make the exit criteria your required fields, align on some simple goals and KPIs. Don't make it overly complicated, but at the end of the day, make it easy for the person to execute what you want them to do. But you don't know what to have them execute until you do that customer journey map. And I think once you have it dialed in, you have everybody trained, you have everybody working together, and you have your systems aligned, you have to iterate. So you have to continue to collect feedback, and you need to revisit this customer journey map at least once a year. If you're new and you're still developing things, it may be a regular, 60, 90-day exercise that you're reviewing to make sure that you're making iterations as you've, learned more things along the way. So that's my little rant on customer journey mapping and alignment and your CRO org structure. I really hope that you've enjoyed this season of RevOps Unboxed. I really enjoy talking to all kinds of revenue operations practitioners, hearing their stories, giving suggestions. Everybody has a different perspective. And so I hope you enjoy the content. If you have any recommendations or anything that you'd like to hear on the show, we are getting ready to do some recording for season 4. So thank you so much for listening, and you take care. This has been another episode of RevOps Unboxed. Peace out.